then," Hannah had said, hoping Saskia couldn't see that she was slightly hurt to be given no credit for spontaneity. It was true that she liked to be prepared, but she wasn't a total stick in the mud. "Besides," she'd continued, "I'm not solely responsible for the Crystal Waters project, so I won't get stressed." "Ah, yes, your babysitter," Saskia had grinned. "Gerald's covered his bases." "Exactly," Hannah had nodded, determined. "My freelancer." She didn't like to think of someone babysitting her. That person being somebody called Noah Rosewall, apparently one of Gerald's trusted contacts, who lived an hour away from Porthgolow. It was a strange situation where Hannah, as a Green Futures employee, would be leading on the case, but Noah would have more experience. Hannah hoped they would work well together, despite the unusual setup and the fact they'd never met before, and that she could prove to Gerald she deserved her place on his team. The train juddered awake, and Hannah held on to her coffee and her almond croissant. It had been too early to have breakfast at home, and she needed fortification for the long journey. What she hadn't told Saskia was that, as well as wanting to get her first project under her belt, she had felt the pull of Cornwall like a familiar song tugging at her heartstrings. Her mum had taken her and her brother there on holiday when they were little. They had stayed in Newquay and made the most of the surrounding beaches. Hannah remembered the way it was almost surreally beautiful, when the sun was shining, the colours pure and bold. Those holidays had ended when they'd moved to Scotland, but the snippets of memory Hannah had retained were magical. Cornwall in December would be very different from midsummer, and she would be there for work, but the thought of seeing the sea and the rugged coastline still gave her a thrill. Tucking a strand of long blonde hair behind her ear, she took out her iPad and opened Safari. Porthgolow appearing as a search option after she'd typed the first two letters. She'd already done this several times, but nothing about the village's internet presence had so far jogged her memory, and when she'd spoken to her mum on the phone, she hadn't had time to visit her before the trip itself. Her mother had been vague. "Of course we didn't just stay in Newquay when we went, love, but that's what a holiday's for, travelling around, visiting new places. What's the name of this village again?" "Porthgolow," Hannah had said, and then repeated it, trying out a slightly different pronunciation. There was a pause, as if her mum was considering it, and then, "Nope, doesn't ring any bells. Maybe we passed through it, but all those Cornish place names are so similar. It was 20 years ago, love." They hadn't lived in Edinburgh when Hannah was little. She'd been born in Oxford, and they'd moved to Scotland when she was 9, her mum wanting a fresh start after divorcing Hannah's dad. After that, the Cornwall holidays had stopped. It was a long enough journey at the best of times, as she was about to experience for herself, let alone with 2 young children. From her online search, Hannah had already discovered one point of interest in the village she was visiting: the Cornish cream tea bus. It was a vintage routemaster that had been turned into a cafe and was based on Porthgolow Beach. It gave tours around local beauty spots, was the focal point of a Saturday food market, and had even, earlier in the year, been part of the catering team for a lavish BBC costume drama filming in the area. Hannah went to the website now and once again pored over photographs of the bus standing on the beach, its red paintwork contrasting with the pale sand and dizzyingly blue water. There were pictures of scones crumbling under healthy dollops of jam and cream, steaming cups of tea, sausage rolls and mini quiches, danishes and donuts, slices of lemon cake. Hannah's mouth started to water, and as she went on to read about the variety of culinary delights on offer at the food markets, she was almost drooling. Would they be holding them in December? Would the bus even be open? Hannah felt a pang of longing for her sous chef job at the Whiskey Cellar, an upmarket restaurant in Edinburgh's Old Town. It had kept her in rent money throughout her university course, but it hadn't just been a way of staying afloat. She had loved the simple pleasure of creating original, mouth-watering food, though she hadn't admitted to anyone quite how much.